Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Yasmine Hardcastle, and we're going to be talking about content for accountants. Now, my guest, I'm absolutely delighted, has been working with me within the Accountants Recruiter, our sister company. So she's been responsible for their content marketing as well as their overall marketing. In fact, she was one of the big brains behind the rebrand for the Accountants Growth Club. And even better, bit of a announcement exclusive is Yasmine is bringing her combined skills, which are about project management, time management as executive assistant. She worked agency side, freelance in terms of podcasting, blogging, really inbound marketing. She's joining us within the Accountants Growth Club as our latest growth specialist. So we're really, really pleased with that. So, Yasmine, what is it about content for accountants that has made us both, we've got to do a LinkedIn Live on this? What is it for you? What is so important about content? What's that in your view?
Well, they need to advertise, and everybody needs an accountant ultimately, right? But everybody's on their phone. So the accountants need to have content that's going to reach their target audience. And that's really, really important. So, you need to have the content, and it's just about how you choose to put it all out there. And I think that the misconception, at least my misconception, definitely until I started working with the Accountants Recruiter and with you over on the coaching side of things, is that accounting is boring. And while the actual accounting bit might be to some people, or like for me, numbers terrify me, so I'm happy other people do it. But accountants themselves, they're actually really interesting people. Like all our members and everything, they're people, right? So they have a personality. I don't think that the stereotypical sort of accountant of how we might once have seen things really exists anymore. Like they're just real people, and they're providing a service, and they make it interesting. And I think that's something that's a really good trend that I hope just becomes the norm, is to make accounting accessible for the clients. So explaining it in a non.
Yeah, and I think this brings us on to a couple of points. So before social media really took off, before we had this access to the internet with fast broadband, if we think about the way that most accountants used to go to market, they would advertise. So yellow pages. I don't know whether they had yellow pages where you were growing up in Canada.
Yes,
but yes,
yellow and white.
Yeah, so being in the right directories, your little black book of contacts, your network was really important. Now, you might do some thought leadership, which might be speaking at a seminar. You might have some white papers, some brochures, but you didn't really do that much in the way of, you might have done some PR, but actually the barriers to getting your content out there were really, really high. And with the internet, the access to high-speed broadband, everyone became a creator, didn't they? Some people really shouldn't become a creator, but we'll leave that one there. So everyone became a creator. And I think, and so when I wrote the Financial Times Guide to Business Networking, the Go-To Expert, which was all about exploring this route about inbound marketing. Previously we were mostly doing outbound marketing, which was about let's go and advertise, let's go and cold call, let's go and direct mail. And actually this newfound inbound marketing happened. And the great thing about doing inbound marketing right is you don't have to leave your desk, do you?
No, you can be anywhere.
You could be anywhere. And particularly if you're growing your practice, you may not have time or the budget to go to a weekly networking event, to go out and press the flesh and shake the hands in the way that, the traditional route. And when we look at routes to market for accountants, when you look at the most popular routes, so getting more from the existing clients, search engine optimization, networking on social media, content is such a massive enabler. In fact, you cannot typically do one without the other. I talk about the Holy Trinity, and I'm not spiritual. When I talk about the Holy Trinity, what I'm really meaning is content, social media, and SEO. You do all those three together and you have the most amazing marketing machine. So that's the reason for content. Now, one of the things I love about you, Yasmine, is the great visual image you brought in for the club, how we've got this really lovely looking brand. But I'm really proud of our content right now, but what mistakes do you see accountants making with their content?
There's a lot, unfortunately, but it's not but it's not
Yeah, like it
exclusive.
is.
But it's not exclusive to accountants. Like, I think
Yes.
it's across the board, but I think because of the type of content that accountants have, it's easier to make those
Yes.
mistakes. So one of those things is not to have like something that catches the eye. So having something that's visually pleasing is important. I think more than the substance, to be honest, because if it's not visually pleasing, somebody's not going to look at it. Ultimately, they
Yeah.
won't want to get into the substance. So, and then there's just not being on any digital platform at all, or if you have one, like having an out of date website or something like that. Like, that's not serving anybody and might actually turn clients off. So if they looked up accountant in, like, let's say I'm in Cheshire, I'm in East Cheshire. So if I looked up East Cheshire accountants and I had landed on somebody's web page that was like from 2005, it's not easy to navigate. It's probably not going to look great, and it might turn me off unless I absolutely, absolutely needed that accountant to be like, if they were like exactly in my area. Um, let's see, not being on the digital platform, not showing your prices. I think that
Oh,
that's
yes.
something that people, I know that's something you're very passionate about, but I think people are a bit shy about that, and accountants in particular. And I think that it's just because you're afraid somebody is going to say no. But like for me, as an example, as a consumer, I want to know. I want to know what my initial investment is going to be. And I think that everybody wants that, and especially after the last couple of years where, we've been dealing with government subsidies and all these things, and our own businesses maybe not doing that well, or just everybody's just very money conscious right now. So being upfront about those things, I think, is really important. And also not pricing high enough, but that's a whole other conversation. So
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. And I think I want to add to that list is a lot of accountants are in the I should do this camp. I've been told I need to do content. I'm being told I need to put stuff on social media. I've been told I need to do that. And so they see it as a tick box exercise, right? Put something up on LinkedIn, put something on Instagram. And you know what? It's deathly boring. Deathly boring. And look, I'm not going to chastise you for buying ready-made content. In fact, we do white label content for our members. Every single week, there's a new blog post ready for you. Yours truly, as I like to say, the occasional moonlighting content writer in our business, pseudo journalist, will do updates after the budget, that sort of stuff. But what you normally see is these really dry as ditch water from the content libraries. I've got nothing against the Bomas, the Practice Webs, the Merciers, the whoever pull out these big feed, but they're as dry as ditch water. And you said something at the beginning, Yasmine, I think that was really important, that people buy people. People, you said, key thing is you said, we've got to make this stuff accessible. And the first thing to making it accessible is actually people feeling like they can get in touch because they understand who you are.
yes.
They relate to you. They relate to you well. And if you kind of put the professional veneer on that says, I can only talk about accounting, I can only talk about tax, I can't mention the fact that the kid's been screaming all night and I haven't had any sleep, because that's not professional. And you know what? It's those little life events, those human interest stories that take your content from, oh my God, this is boring, to, wow, they get me, they understand me. And there's far more relating to it. So that's the first thing is, now, of course, if you are going to buy into these content libraries, don't just kind of go and share, stick your own personality on, reframe it for your audience. And I think that gets me to one of the next problems is most accountants, when they're content marketing, are not focused enough on their audience. And,
How it relates to the audience, I think, is
yeah,
really important. And I think also, like I was saying before about how like the type of content, because it can come off very dry, it can come off very boring, but it also can just be like a whole lot. So like demystifying some things for your clients, I think, is really important. And I think sometimes people, like accountants, can forget that, like their clients don't know. So if they explain things to them in like a personable fashion, that's helpful. And I think also just adding too much on
Yeah.
one little square often happens. And something that I learned when I was in uni was like white space is gold. So anytime, like, you just need to think about, like, is this too crowded? Because again, visually pleasing. If it's not, you're going to move on.
Absolutely. And this visually pleasing goes into eye catching. So is your heading actually talking to your audience?
Mm-hmm.
So you know my updates, Yasmine. Hopefully they scream personable, knows what it's like to grow a business, and is always talking about growing a business pretty much. I mean, there's the occasional stuff of what are you doing, but actually it is all some aspect for the audience. So any type of marketing, but definitely content marketing, starts by a good understanding of your client personas. Now,
Yes.
for 80-90% of us, we're going to go, we want small growing businesses. Occasionally, you want the unicorn of the 1 to 20 million pound businesses that are just growing, and you're like, well, you don't get them. You tend to grow those. And so, what is it that there's a big fallacy out there. You have to be sector based. No, you could. You've got to have a target market. So, is that on size? Is that on location? Is that on type of person? Is that on structure of business? Is that on life stage of business? Is it mixed in with sector? Is it mixed in with all sorts of things? It doesn't need. It can be a number of different sort of aspects. We with the Accountants Growth Club work best with accountants that are between 50k and 1.5 million in turnover, maximum 2 decision makers within the business, and that they want to grow their practice, not necessarily to £1 million, but that's the type of accountant we work best with. And as you can see, we've got a lot of knowledge, but do you have that knowledge about your client? And if you're watching this live stream, do put in a comment. Tell us what you like about it. If you're enjoying it, click the like button. We'd love to hear your feedback from it. So a lot of the classic mistakes people make is they're not focused enough on their audience, which is why they take these content feeds, click on whatever. And this is why you then see different types of platform as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're quite passionate about it.
Yes.
And what's Instagrammable is not necessarily LinkedInable, is not right for Twitter. What's your view on that, Yasmine?
So it really, like, it's about your audience, right? Like who your target audience is, who your personas are, and where are they? Because they might not be on Twitter. They might not be on Instagram or whatever that happens to be. Everybody's like little cocktail for content is very, very different based on their audience. But, and I don't think anybody needs to be on every single platform, but I do think that if there's a fear that if you're not on the platform, then you don't have like that voice or that reach or whatever, then I do suggest like getting an account and having your handle, because then you know that you have that, right? Because you might not have the capacity to be making use of it, but then at least you have that. And then something like a hack for that, I think, which is important, because if somebody does find you, but you're not on it, how do you still keep that going? Like, how do you keep the path still going until you get contacted? So like if Instagram isn't where your audience is, but you want to have that presence there, I suggest having an account, but making sure that your bio, like your description on there, says who you are, what you do. If you want to get in touch with us, click the website and make sure you have your website there. Just have that call to action there, because that's a mistake as well, because some content's just going sort of like out there without a purpose. But if you want them to contact you, you have to tell them. So if somebody got onto Accountant ABC's Instagram feed but saw, we visit us on LinkedIn or click on our website, and maybe had like a couple posts up just saying, welcome to us, be sure to go to the link in our bio, then that's cool, because that's there and it can just live there and you don't have to do anything with it, but people can still find you because Instagram has turned into this great SEO search engine.
And I think this is really important. I want to emphasize it's that where is your audience? Now, when we were back writing the Go-To Expert in the early days of social media, we had a very simple 4 C's model. Well, it's actually 5 C's, but never let us actually count things up, right? That's why we work with accountants. So you start with the first C is, who is it that you want as a client? And everything leads into that, and it's got to be through that lens. You then go and ask, what content will that client find valuable? So, for example, if you're working with often quite small businesses that are very early on in their journey, they will like what you think is potentially very boring content. Should I be a sole trader or a limited company? It's just one of the things that I know we've built for our members recently, that blog post. There's always the perennial, should I buy my car through the company? Always these things. You might think they're boring, but actually, as you say, actually there's always an audience of people that need to hear that and need to hear it again. So don't think that you can't put out content because it's been done thousands of times before. The next thing, the next C, once you've done the content, is to think about the communities. So where are they? And I'd say for most of us, LinkedIn is your natural home. Now, this is going to sound strange, but your second natural home is potentially now Instagram. And I had to get used to that fact. I was like, no, isn't that for creatives that want to stick a picture? Actually, that is typically where we looked at our stats and we realized that after LinkedIn, Instagram was our best traffic generator. And we're like, we've hardly done anything on Instagram. What's going on? So, it's where are your communities? And that's why we hardly do anything on Twitter now. And I used to be the Quitter Tween of Bedfordshire. Get this, Yasmine, in the days when Twitter was quite new in its infancy, you are in the presence of the most influential peep in Bedfordshire. I hope you realise you're in the presence of Twitter royalty. Badly faded and jaded Twitter royalty, but absolutely. We hardly get any traffic in from Twitter. We're hardly on it now. And anything we do is kind of canned and repurposed. So the next thing is you've then got to have a conversation. If you're not doing anything with content, getting content out is your first step. The next step is then to go and have a dialogue out with people, because that's what really supercharges your content. It's that dialogue. And you'll often notice when I put posts out, I try my best to put an engaging headline of, I've been musing about this. What do you think about? What would you answer this? I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I'm always trying to get that engagement, that conversation in my content. Because
I think that's the key thing, is that it's a conversation.
Yes.
Like, your content needs to be a conversation, because otherwise people are going to tune out.
Because all the social media sites now use social signals to see what to amplify. If you don't get those golden hour clicks, likes, comments, it's going to die, your content. So that's why it's so important to have it as a conversation. You're not just pushing it out there. You need to allow for stuff to come back. Then the final thing, as you said, is call to action. What do you want them to do? So Yasmine, you talk about these 3 different types of content. Do you want to just explain a little bit more?
Sure. So any brand ultimately should have content pillars. So it's like the different types of things that you talk about. And then there are sometimes the same thing can fall under each pillar, but it's just about how you put it out there. So really, I would suggest maybe having 3 content pillars. And for me, those are things that provide value, whatever that might be. Selling, so that's your CTA, right? Like, go to the website, click, or as you say, encouraged to buy or encouraged to take action.
Yes.
And then there's fun. So value, sell, and fun. And the fun is, for me anyways, the second humanizing aspect of things. Because if you break up your content from like the sell, and like value adds are great, but sometimes that gets a little bit much at the same time. So if you pop in something about like National Cat Day or something like that, and somehow incorporate it into accounting or whatever that might be, then, and it makes people smile and they'll like it and they'll be like, oh, these sound like interesting accountants. Maybe I should check them out. I want to switch. So the value, create value, CTA, sell, and the fun.
And I think it's really important, and those are really good pillars, is to think about the balance.
Yeah.
Because if you over dominate one of them, the content, what you're doing is going to switch people off. And I'd always say minimize the sell. And I see a lot of accountants going out with that. If you need an accountant, talk to us. Or we've got 3 spaces for new clients, whatever. If you're annoyed with your current, these are, I nearly swore there, but I'm on live stream and I'm not going to damage Yasmine's brand by swearing. These are really, when we talk about sell, what we're actually talking about is getting people into the next stage of your sales process. So maybe that's sharing a testimonial. So we do Testimonial Tuesday, where we, across our content feeds, try and share a valuable testimonial. That sell could also be a story about a client that you've worked with. but something that's really demonstrating your credibility and is a little bit more about you. What we're not talking about is buy my stuff or an indirect buy my stuff. What we're talking about is come in and take the next little step into our world. That could be download this lead magnet. What it not is a come and work with us because we're great. And I see, and that's one of the big mistakes, that come and work with us. We don't want that.
I think that there's a place for that, but like you're saying, it needs to be really spread out, because sometimes you need to be obvious with people.
Yes.
Because otherwise they're not going to do, they're not going to do what you want them to do. So
yeah, and you know what, for us, you know, our sell posts are come to our events. You know, it's never, do you need a new coach? You know, it's not occasionally at the end of the book, PS, you know, the fact, you know where we are. You know, there'll be occasional tongue in cheek. I think there's a really good book by John Espirron, and if I've said his name wrong, it's called Content DNA. And he takes you through a process where you think about what is the hallmarks of your content. And I find that a really helpful approach, particularly for accountants that are looking for what are the rules of what I can post and what I cannot post. And I think often people, to get into that world of posting up stuff, whether blog posts, whether doing a podcast, they need to know the boundaries. And I think it's a really good idea of going, if you were to look on my feed, this is the themes, this is the sense that you come out with. So for example, one of our members, his new brand is he's your life tour guide. And he very much is helping business owners that have got trading companies that have either got a property company or an investment company or are looking to get in it. And that's his target client. If you look all over his feed, there are loads of pictures of him with his children. In fact, his Happy New Year message, he had his two, and you know, he was very brave because his two children are under 6, came on and actually wished them Happy New Year. Very cute. Aww. But literally, so he, you know, if you look at him, he's instinctively worked out his content DNA. He talks about family a lot so he can relate because he knows a lot of his whatever. He talks about property a lot because he's a massive to him. You know, he's moved away from do you need your management accounts? So really thinking through what, and I think another one of our members, so they won't mind me saying it, JVCA, they are a quirky firm. They're lovely, and don't get me wrong, I love them to bits, work with them forever. But you go onto their website and their personality oozes out, and they talk a lot about having the right biscuits, and tea is important, and are you a dog or cat person? And if you look at their social media, they're often talking about the cat, the dog, the family, the tea is important. After all, tea is important. Yes, tea is really important. And you know what? When they
these are my people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I think you were just born to be British, weren't you, Yasmine?
Maybe.
But anyway, but interestingly, they're often their first conversations with new leads are about tea.
Huh.
And this is about helping their content, helping those conversation starters. I think about One Accounts. And, you know, they started to use LinkedIn and they hardly ever sell One Accounts. But what they're doing is they're giving snapshots into what it's like to work for One Accounts. They've never had a recruitment problem as a result. But they also talk about what they're doing as a family. And they specialize in family businesses. So they talk about the dynamics of those family business. And you can see it coming through. And also they talk about what they're doing in their day-to-day lives. And what they've found is, whilst it might not deliver direct clients, it gets conversation starters with the right people. It gets people interested. It means that their profile has grown rapidly, and you'll never find them saying, do you need a new accountant? You'll know that Paul loves his garden. You'll know that he's got a Peloton bike. You know that he's a gadget fan. And you know what? They're using their content as that first icebreaker conversation. And I always say to people, with the call to action part of that 4 C's, 5 C's model, is know how this fits into your marketing model. And if you don't know your marketing, how does this all work together? Well, this is called a CTA. Come and speak with Yasmine. You know, this is why we learned from the Accountants Recruiter. I think Donna may speak to me in about 2 months' time as a result of nicking her best stuff. But this is why we took Yasmine across. So actually, if you're thinking growth plan, what's that? How does my marketing link into that? I'm putting some stuff on LinkedIn, but I don't know what I'm really doing. Come and speak with Yasmine. You know, you formally start with us, don't you? You're going to be at Accountex, and you formally start with us May the 9th, and then your first day 2 and 3 of working with us, you're at Accountex.
I know. It's just throwing me out there.
Yeah, we have a sink or swim attitude.
I'll swim. I'm actually a terrible swimmer in real life, but I feel like in like these situations, I'm a good swimmer.
Yeah. So let me just recap, because it's funny. You were like, I know I've got to do this, but I'm really scared. And I'm like, I said, we'll have fun. And you know what? We've done 25 minutes with hardly a break. And I'm like, I've got a meeting in 5 minutes. We are bringing this to an end. So there's a big thing here about, and I think what the first thing of content is, some content is better than no content. The next thing is you've actually got to focus your content, because otherwise all you're doing is putting out noise. And actually, you
Yes.
might be irritating people if you're putting on LinkedIn Instagram worthy stuff, which is, are you a custard cream or a ginger nut snap person? You know, if I see that on LinkedIn, or any, what color should your tea be? That's an unfollow immediately. So know your audience. So the next key thing is really tailor and focus. And if you don't know your audience, that's when you need to speak with Yasmine, because it's part of what she'll do. Because once you know your audience and focus your content on it, it's like putting petrol on a fire, or even petrol on the dying embers of a fire. It goes whoosh, and that is literally what will happen to your marketing effectiveness. However, it's not just a one big whoosh, because you keep doing content, so it's a sustainable big blaze of inquiries. And it's when you put that personable, focused content, that, as you say, you talk about, well, what's your content DNA, your pillars. You know, you've got a little bit of the call to action, the sell stuff, which isn't a direct sell, by the way. It's, let's take you to the next step in my funnel. That sounded a little bit wrong, didn't it? Let me take you, little girl, for a tea, and I'm going to offer you a poisoned apple, but never mind. Stop being flippant, Heather. Move on. We summarize. It is about that importance of showing your personality. We don't want to be bland. You know, as you said, Yasmine, as a previous freelancer, actually having accountancy and being accessible and showing your personality is really important. So it's about getting that right mix, going where your clients are, but also, and we haven't really talked about it, which is probably for another time now, is making sure you've got the processes and the resource to keep the consistency there.
Yes,
One
and
blog post.
consistency. That's another
Yeah,
C for you.
yeah, another C. Only 6 C's for us 4 C's models, but who's counting? We're not friends. So, Yasmine, our latest growth specialist. This is our time to formally announce you joining the business. Have you got anything to add, anything to say before we disappear?
No, I think you summarized it really well. And I am excited to be joining on as a growth specialist. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And as you said, this is something I'm very passionate about. I love content and figuring it out and working on strategy for things like that. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely. And you know, how long have you been podcasting with your, is it West City Country Girl or City Country Girl?
It's called City Girl Talks. I've been doing that for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And that's been a really nice outlet. I took a little pause for a little bit just when we were moving across overseas and whatnot, but I'm back in it now, and it's good. It's a nice way to have a conversation, and it's a really great way to share things like tips for accountancy and stuff like that. So
Yeah. You know,
it's a good avenue.
You don't just do it for other people, you do it for yourself. Once again, that sounds slightly wrong, but we're just going to leave that on there. So if you've enjoyed this, found it useful, please connect with Yasmine. She'd love to speak to you. Let's just connect on LinkedIn, but also put in a comment, tell us how you found this, and we'll be doing more of these, because I think we're probably going to do something for Instagram for accountants. I think it's overdue, isn't it?
That would be good. Yeah.
Righty ho. See you all soon. Bye.
Bye.